2022 Endurance E-Racing World Championship brought to you in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, Aztec Sim Sports, Global Flix, Motorvision.tv, Stengolm, ESTV, and Film Vault Limited.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
No time for introduction, folks. We're riding on board with DIS ID Sim Support right in front through 130R, side by side, neck and neck. But ID Sim Sport hold on to the position. DIS on fresher tyres, we believe, and ID Sim Sport desperately trying to hold on to track position right now. But DIS unable to find a way through. They're slightly compromised on the exit of the corner. I am Yusuf Bin Sahel, rejoined by Kieran McGinley as Alex Goldschmidt has gone for his scheduled break. I think it is 6th, yeah.
Yeah, they don't care what position it's for, it's that it's a position, they want it.
Battles all over. We're 2 hours into our 12-hour races. That's wide from ID Sim Sport, but the wider line means that you can get onto the power a bit earlier, and as a result, their final corner exit. Your top three in the DPI class separated by 15 seconds, and then in the LMP2 class, you look at your top two separated by 2 seconds. you head down into the GTE class, and again, top 2 not separated by a huge amount, 3 seconds. Top 3 separated by 10 seconds. Then down to the GT3 class. Okay, a bit of a lead going on there. We have actually already seen... Wait, why is Christopher Kianik in 7th?
I believe, on my break, they had a couple of issues with internet connectivity as the DIS Sim Racing Lab runs a little bit wide on the exit of 130R. Not the greatest place in the world you want to run wide, but that's one of the LMP2 cars running even deeper. I think that's the Satellite Racing Machine running very deep into the Casio Triangle right behind him. Anything you can do, Satellite say, we can do better, as they stream their way through. Then there you can see on the screen down towards turn 1. Yeah, I believe they had a couple of internet issues on their end, so that means they're slightly away down the order, but it is a long way to go. Just under 10 hours of racing still to really run through. And yeah, I'm going to correct myself, because this GTE battle we're riding on board with is for 7th place, and yeah, I'm absolutely loving it. It looks brilliant out there. 2 drivers who do not want to yield this position.
Absolutely. If we could also get the battle for 2nd in the DPI class, because Nakib Aslan and Jimmy Nisila are very close to each other. Nakib Aslan actually, I think, just got past. He came out of the pits on the previous lap, and he didn't have the best of lap times.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at it right now. Jimmy Nisila is still in front in that number 64 machine at the moment, in the Mirandus E-Stars machine. But yeah, the 7.9 axle car gets a little bit tail happy through the first part of the S's. But yeah, they are running line of stern at the moment, just trying to dispatch of some GT3 cars. Looks like the 404 Glam Racing machine, as they just make their way through the left-hander of the Dunlop curve. But yeah, pretty much running line of stern at the moment, looking to, well, open up the account as the 7.9 axle machine running very close to the gravel through the middle of the Degner curves. Got away with that one.
And YD Simsport having a look to come back at DIS into 130R. We missed how DIS got ahead. It happened on the screen, but I didn't see it somehow. How I managed that, I don't quite know. But ID Simsport not done with this battle just yet. They'll try to get the exit coming out of the Casio Triangle, but they don't quite get it. And DIS should have a bit of time to try to pull a gap between themselves and Michael Pedersen.
Yep, just keeping another eye on that DPI battle so far. Nakib Aslan just trying to put that pressure on. He's trying to make sure he puts the pressure on without falling into mistakes.
Oh, he's going to send it down the inside into turn 2. That's aggressive. Bit of contact. The rear end steps out, maybe on the outside into the S's, but too far behind. I thought DIS were going to get an opportunity to stretch their legs, but Michael Pedersen saying, no, not quite just yet. You still have to battle with me a little bit longer.
Just a little bit longer, and yeah, the more they battle, of course, the more intense it's going to get. How does it plan into fuel usage, into tyre wear? I mean, the drivers won't be thinking about that right now, but the teams will be scurrying around in the background trying to make sure the strategy still works, even with this intense battle going on.
Well, we've got a few battles. There's one here as Michael Pedersen outbreaks himself into Degner 2, and now I do think the battle is well and truly over. Then we've got Nakib Aslan, who is just a little bit behind Jimmy Nisila in the 64 Mirandus E-Stars car. And actually further down, Robert Pawn, after having that stop-go penalty for deuces following the contact between himself and the DSR car, is now 8 seconds behind Alexei Zagorodnev in the 241. Alexei, former Juices driver, if I'm not mistaken. It's a former driver for some team. It might have been Valente. I might be wrong there. But he's 6 seconds behind and closing in on to Zagorodnev as well.
Definitely so, as just looking around at the head of the orders for some of the teams here. The LMP2 class, the number 94 machine, is currently at the top of the order. That Burst Esports Cuda sunglasses machine, and I mean, Burst have been, well, bursting with pace at the moment, Yusuf. They're running away with both the classes they've entered at the moment.
I've just seen some notifications in the YouTube chat about the Mugen Sim Racing team. Apparently they crashed and disconnected and are back, but they have that 3-lap penalty, and this is literally Mugen from 2021 all over again, where they had these consistent issues. Last year was blowing up the engine time after time. and now this year it's a crash and a disconnect.
Yeah, and obviously it's a little bit of a sucker punch as well, that you have those issues and you have to take the 3-lap penalty.
Yep.
But it is stated in the rules and that will be the case. But yeah, still a long way to go, as that's a bit of a fishtail there from Nakib Aslan as he tries to wrestle the car through the first couple of corners, just trying to close in on that 64 machine, that Maradnes E-Stars machine. 14 seconds, by the way, separates Maradnes E-Stars from the number 18 Burst Esports Simplexity, Yene Simicic, in the car as we speak. And looking at sort of fuel and tyres, and you're looking at roughly, the first stints were roughly 40 minutes, I think. That was a bit close for comfort there. The 54 Mustang machine, well played, sir, because that 7.9 axle machine was always going for that inside line. And
this is a send actually from Ricky Jimenez into the hairpin, finding a way through on Jan Grangfer. Sorry to cut across you there, Kieran. That's a battle for 9th in the GTE class. You could dub it the battle for the wooden spoon.
Yeah, and the DPIs are going to get themselves involved as well, as they all now make their way towards the spoon curve. Everyone managing to negotiate their way through. But that's a bit of a moment there for Nakib Aslan as he just misses that braking point. The car snapped on him, really. The rear end did. A bit of a lock of the rear brakes. Manages to recover the car and get himself going again. But yeah, that would have been a bit of a scary moment for him.
And I just realised that 27 MCM Motorsport car, when we had our morning show, we talked about how it was like the BWT or a pink with loads of white added in and diluting it. I actually think that is just the beige of pink.
Well, that's what Alex was saying earlier on as well, the beige of pink. It's going to be the new phrase we take away from GTR 24H from this weekend. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to comment on it. The both of you have said it. I'm going to leave them alone. They've suffered through their, both of you picking apart their livery enough. They don't need a third person to do it.
Okay, would you like to look at some stationary cars quickly, Kieran?
It depends what stationary cars.
Well, it's Zoltan Varkonyi and Vojta Pelesny, both in the pit lane. So these two are synced in terms of their pit stop strategies. The 67 and the 74, that's Mugen Sim Racing and Uses Motorsport Club, your GTE leaders. There's about 4 seconds separating the pair of them before their pit stop.
Definitely, and yeah, we'll see how it all goes as they, as you said, both of them make their way into the pits. And interesting to see that, is that a reaction from Pelesny, or was that always the plan to come in on the same lap? And when you're pitting at the same lap with the driver ahead of you or the team ahead of you, it normally means you're running a similar strategy. And around a track like Matsusaka, where strategy is going to be key in the end, it's almost going to be, as we head towards the last hour of the race, who blinks first in, who pits in, and who's the one that's going to be the real difference in the strategy to try and get the position and try and seal that position out on track.
And both teams actually switching drivers. So 20 Janssen jumping in for the 74 Juices Motorsport Club. Meanwhile, for the 67 Mugen Sim Racing team, it's Gergo Baloch who is jumping in. And personally, I don't think there is any reactions to the pit stops just yet. Maybe in the final hour or so we might see some reactionary pit stops, but I think, as is usually the case with endurance racing, especially at the start, it's just run your own race, trust in your own strategy, and then once you get to the end, you see how everything pairs up against each other. Yeah,
it's a smart strategy. It's one that works. Make sure you just keep yourself out of trouble, and hopefully the results will follow. That's going to be the way these teams are going to be thinking, and it's much easier said than done. As soon as the driver jumps into the car, all manner of things can change, all manner of scenarios could happen. But if you've got a cool head on the shoulders somewhere in the team, you've got a good chance of getting a good result on your side. You've just got to make sure, again, that you keep yourself out of trouble.
Alexei Zagorodnev never jumping into the pits for the 241 Cyberlinks racing car. Now, two teams that were battling it out a fair amount in the LMP2 class last year are now battling it out once again, but in a different class. B32 Racing and DSR as well. So B32 Racing, we don't know who is at the wheel. They have a lovely facility here in Denmark. Sometimes we get to, well, I think they're probably actually still streaming it over on their Facebook page, and it looks awesome. Carl Lukagor, though, in the 777 is just 1 second behind B32 Racing. Last time round, taking about 7/10 out of B32.
Definitely, and B32 here might find themselves in a slight bit of trouble. On their last lap, they set their best Sector 3 time of their race, so they clearly do see the signs that they are being closed in on, and they need to do something quickly here.
We might be having a few more battles as well, because Inigo Anton is closing in onto Tom Oldenmenger. Oldenmenger, having made that pit stop from the lead of the LMP2 class, is 5 seconds behind the 164 of Liam Rance, that's Satellite Racing, and Inigo Anton in the 21 SEM 9-axle car. But considering we're nearly 2.5 hours into the race, still so many battles, and every lead still hanging in the balance. One mistake from either class leader could, well, be very interesting to say the least. And right now, I'm actually most interested in the GT3 class, because Christopher Kianik, 3 laps down with 9.5 hours remaining. What can he do?
The world is his oyster, and that goes for the team as well. It's obviously a tricky scenario to have the issues then be 3 laps down, but they'll be hoping now that's the end of their sort of mandatory issues. It's almost like a team will go through
issues.
Well, it does become mandatory issues. 12 hours is a long race. You're gonna have a driver that maybe makes a mistake. You're gonna have maybe something to do with the hardware. It doesn't become a case of, oh, make sure you don't make any mistakes. Make sure you just keep your head down and keep driving. There's going to be something that is a brick wall that you have to negotiate through in a long endurance. And just like we saw at the 24-hour of Le Mans, we saw winners in all classes at some point have some issue that they had to overcome. So it becomes mandatory to me, a mandatory issue. You don't know what it's going to be, you don't know when it's going to turn up, but you're just hoping it happens early in the race so you can recover from it.
And I'd like to compare this with some of the IRL endurance races that I've done. It's not quite the same, but I remember one time where we were doing the 24 hours, the British 24 hours, or the BUKC 24 hours. There was one of the two at Teesside, and I was driving on a straight, and I just felt the power just go, and it was really bizarre. So I came into the pits, and they have mechanics who essentially look after all of the cars, not your own mechanics. So I came in, and I essentially just explained it, because I had half a lap to try to figure out what was going wrong, and I just said it felt like the left side just wasn't picking up, and the guy just looked at it and realized that the spark plug holder had just bitten the bullet. So it's one of those things that sometimes when you have these issues, the teams that are able to react the quickest and work out what's going wrong.
Oh dear, that's a little bit of trouble for the B32 racing team. They ran deep into the second Degner and never really recovered from that. They had to use the gravel, couldn't quite see if they'd had to use the wall in any way, but they've lost that position. Are they going to lose even more? And well, how much damage is there to that car?
Well, B32 Racing now behind Carl Lucador in the 777. Did he hit the wall, Kieran?
It's hard to tell from the angle I had, unfortunately. It's something we'd have to seek back.
Just for you, Kieran.
Just for me?
Just for you. I will get
lost me.
a replay of it. And we can see if B32 Racing made any contact with the wall.
What's your best guess though? Were they hanging on in there and not hitting the wall?
I think they didn't hit the wall.
You didn't think they hit the wall?
Do you think they hit the wall?
Well, I mean, if they hung in there better than my voice is hanging in there, then they'll have done a very good job.
Okay, I am getting the replay up. Do you want an onboard or a trackside angle?
Surprise me. We saw it trackside, so I don't know if trackside's going to be a very good angle.
Okay, right. We have got the replay and we are ready to go. Production. So this was happening down into Degner 1. So it all goes wrong at the start with that rear end stepping out, Kieran.
Yeah, it does. And once that happens, you really it was a hit of the wall there.
Was that a wall though, or a barrier?
Well, barrier, wall, they're pretty much the same thing. They're going to give you damage no matter how hard or how nicely you treat them. Yeah, all started to go wrong at the first Degner there. Lost the back end, and unfortunately for him, all he had to recover was grass, and as we all know, tyres and grass just doesn't mix.
I've got some big news in the DPI class. Nakib Aslan, DQ. Now that means that he's been involved in some kind of incident and is now, well, essentially done and dusted. Maybe they'll be able to rejoin, but a 3-lap penalty, and they were running in 2nd/3rd in the DPI class as well.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge obstacle. Your mandatory obstacle, I guess. when it comes to these sort of races. It's happening, it's sticking. As much as my voice
I like
is
the
sticking.
term. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I mean, am I wrong? Am I wrong? Let me know, am I wrong?
Technically.
No. Because when it comes to these long endurances, you are going to face issues. You just don't know what they're going to be. It could be anything. We've got Robert Paulin here in the Juices Motorsport Club car trying to find his way past one of the hypercars. That's Denisichenko in that number 17 Unison racing machine. And of course, this would be for position out on track. But as we've already alluded to, Yusuf, this isn't for class. This is for overall position. They won't care. It's a car out on track. And in the terms of Robert Paulin, he wants to get past it.
I mean, it's just racing drivers. They want to overtake, and the LMP2s and the DPIs are so closely matched that they will go for it anyway. Honestly, if they gained a position by overtaking one of the GT cars, these guys would be happy as well, as he gets a very good exit coming out of Spoon, does the Juices car of Robert Paulin, tucking in behind Denisichenko. But don't forget, that DPI, that little bit faster in a straight line, where the LMP2s are quicker, is under the brakes and through the corners. They have that little bit better mechanical grippers. Well, that's an interesting curve. Yeah, it's an interesting interpretation of the track limits.
But it's an interpretation that seems to be working for them, so I'll leave them to it as we see them now coming down the start-finish straight. Then Robert Paulin, as you say, losing ground on the number 17 Unison racing machine purely because of the power that hypercar actually has. Down the straight, it will pull away. It's through the corners where Robert Paulin is going to be just making up that lost time.
Well, for now, Juices will have to sit behind. I think their best shot is down into the Casio Triangle. I think that's where they're going to try to make a move.
The only problem with that, though, is that the hypercars had all that lovely speed from the Exeter Spoon curve and onto 130R. It's going to be a difficult one if they can get this move done, but I wouldn't put it past Juices. I wouldn't put it past Robert Paulin to try and get this move done. But yeah, it's tricky because he's really got to think about this. Coming up towards the hairpin, definitely thought about a move up the inside until Unison slammed that door shut.
See, I was thinking Casio Triangle because heavy braking zone, but I do have to agree with you on your point there, Kieran. So I'm going to change that to the hairpin because you're coming out of Degner 2. I think that's the place where the LMP2s will be prevailing over the DPIs, and then it's not the longest of runs into the hairpin, and it's a relatively heavy braking zone as well.
It is indeed, and well, we've got an interesting one just further down the order as well, but we'll keep an eye on Robert Paulin because obviously he's got a little bit of slipstream now to that 17 Unison racing car, but again, coming down in towards 130R, you see how far the hypercar is away now, and for Robert Paulin, they did have that GT car to negotiate, so they're obviously going to lose a little bit of time there. Heading on to one of the GTE cars, this is the number 67 Mugen Sim Racing machine, as driven by George Ballet as it stands. Got a little bit of a GT3 in the way, that's the B32 machine.
Yeah, and well, B32 currently sitting in between the Glam, sorry, that's not Glam, that's the Mugen 67 car. Mugen 67, who is currently driving that? That's Gergo Balov, who is just over a second behind Tony Jensen, and that 67 Mugen car has been closing in onto Juices over the last few laps, so we'll be hoping to get past this B32 car as quickly as possible and continue their hunt of Juices.
Tell you what, I wouldn't have liked to in the Mugen Sim car on the inside there, or at least on the outside, because that looked like the B32 machine was going to have a bit of a moment itself coming out of the second Degner, but managed to gather it all up and no harm done, no foul committed. So that Mugen car can now go up well, I would say a position, but it's not really for overall, yes, but in terms of classes, these are two different classes we're seeing out here as we're riding on board with one of the production cars at the moment as they now make their way in towards Spoon Curve. It's
Robert Paulin because Denisichenko has made a mistake and has fallen behind. So if we actually switch to Denisichenko, there you go, you can see that Robert Paulin is now ahead. So he's found a way through. Not fully sure where he's managed to make that. I'd imagine somewhere earlier on this very lap. And look at that closing speed heading towards 130R. But Denisichenko, he lifts out of it and says, I don't want to battle with this LMP2. I'm just going to sit behind and focus on my own race.
It's always a bit difficult to do that when you are theoretically going to be in a class higher than the car ahead of you. It's always a bit difficult how much you're going to be held up at certain points on the track, but heading down the start-finish straight now as they head their way down towards the first corner, he is closing in that car, but it's nowhere near enough as the Juices Motorsport Club car now through the rest of the first sector will use that grip that the production car has through these high-speed corners to simply pull away. He would have done had he not come across the one of the GT cars. I think that's the B32 racing machine having to try and find their way through, and it is with that Cougar livery on the wheel arches, the rear wheel arches as well, as we see the Mugen sim racing machine battling away as well with the I think that's the 264 of Jan Grangqvist.
I feel really bad for Mugen because they wanted to lap Jan Grangqvist there, but they were unable to do so because right when they were about to pull out, Juices decided to show their noses, and that's actually going to, well, help Juices because now Juices, that's 2 Juices in your screen right now. The LMP2 car coming to lap their GTE car as Tony Jensen tries to pull away from Gergo Baloch. Now, we also have more battling going on downfield, as well as some spice. Now, Kieran, I think you like spice, right?
It depends.
Right, so Deegan Fairclough in the 54 Mazda Pescara car is 14 seconds behind Gergo Baloch. Last time round, though, he went 3 seconds quicker.
Well, that is a bit spicy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is. I'll tell you that for nothing. I really will. I'm having a look as well at the 777 and the number 32 because they will be locked in a battle very, very shortly with the 67 Mugen machine making its way through. That's not battling for position, but now when we rejoin them, those 2 out of the 3, the last 3 as the Mugen sim car runs wide, and then we've got the B32 racing machine coming into the pits, which leaves the 777 car leaving it out there, and it's all too much for my poor voice to bear. It does seem to be, but the DSR Gadget Hosset car still now in the lead, but with the B32 racing car in the pit lane now, there's going to be a reaction here, surely from the 777.
Well, I think Carl Lukiger was going a little bit quicker. I'm trying to see what their most recent sector times were. I think Carl was quicker. So probably might stay out for a little bit longer. Let's wait and see, as the Mugen car just cannot get past this DSR car right now.
Oh, that was a snap then from the 777 going through the Dunlop curve, but manages to gather it back up and just about keep it in check. And maybe a change of underwear needed for Carl Leikegaard as he rejoins or comes into the pits on his next one, because 130R is probably the worst place to lose the back end of a car.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Dunlop curve is going to be the second worst.
Yeah, I'm trying to think which one's worse, because 130R, if you lose it, it's very hard to catch because it's such a high-speed corner, but at least you've got more runoff zone, whereas Dunlop curve, it's...
I think, in all honesty, with the amount of runoff area you have at 130R, I don't think that makes any difference.
True, actually.
You could have no runoff area at all, and you'd still have a tough time of stopping that one. You could give them 3 miles in a runoff area, and still, with the speed you carry through into 130R, pretty tough.
Honestly, with 3 miles and no barrier, they might even just take off.
They might do. They might do.
Start flying towards China.
Well, it'd be interesting to see, wouldn't it? A spectacle. Would we put an emission fee on that one, I wonder?
Nah, they can, what do they call it? Import free goods.
Oh, right, okay. Well, it seems like a fair trade deal, I don't know, but then again, we're just 2 commentators behind a desk, so what on earth do we know? How did we get here?
Not much, to be honest.
How did we get here?
To be honest, I'm surprised that I even managed to get onto the right plane on the way over.
I did need to help you, to be fair. No use if it's this way.
You actually did, because we were there. I was like, oh, Kieran, what's the gate number? And you're like, we're going here. And then I was like, what number did you say again? It's like, just shut up, Yusuf, and follow me.
It was one of those where it's sort of like, just make sure, drag him across by the collar and see how it all goes. But I mean, it takes us nicely and neatly into, I'm going to call it a little bit of a throat break, but everybody else calls it something different, Yusuf.
Yeah, we can call it the break while we watch Ricky Jimenez closing in onto DIS. We'll be back shortly. Don't go anywhere. Peter.
2022 Endurance E-Racing World Championship brought to you in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriot, Aztec Sim Sports, Global Flix, Motorvision.tv, Stengolm, ESTV, and Film Vault Limited.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.
Welcome back, boys and girls. We are jumping on in to the final, the final 9 hours of the race. Final 9.5 hours of the race.
It's a weird way of putting that, Yusuf. The final 9 hours of a 12-hour race.
Look, when we get to the 24-hour race, you'll be saying it as well.
Yeah, that's very true. All right. I'll walk away with the tail between my legs. But we've also just seen the 777 come into the pit lane to serve its pit stop, and away it rejoins out onto the track. Obviously, strategy in full swing as we head into 9.5 hours remaining in this race.
Now, while we were in our break, Ricky Jimenez did manage to find a way through on DIS Sim Racing, so I'm going to try to get a replay of that available for us to see exactly how the 27 car managed to find a way through. I'm just double checking 27, the MCM Motorsport car qualified not too well, to be honest. Actually, I think they qualified like 8th or something.
Just having a look through standings and whatnot. There's the DIS Sim Racing Lab machine, and closing in to cars ahead. And of course, that was the DIS Sim Racing Lab machine earlier on in this race was pretty much locked into a titanic battle for position. I mean, you and Alex were watching on how titanic of a battle it actually was. Oh, he's already forgotten.
I'm trying to remember.
Oh, no.
I get known very quickly as, so when I commentate League, we usually have like best of threes.
Yeah.
As our producer is talking to us.
Yeah.
Hello.
He's.
Oh, Andy Kurtzen's ready for an interview.
Oh well, you know what? You've got the better voice. I'll
Okay,
let Andy have a chat with you. No one wants to be interviewed by this voice. That's for sure.
Okay. Don't say that, Kieran. Andy, can you hear me?
Just while we wait for Andy.
Andy, can you hear us?
I can, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Andy, how's it going?
Not so great. I just tore off my headset. 2 seconds. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I'll have to sit down. How it's going? It's actually going pretty well, I think. The start was a bit of a mess. I think all of this with, I don't know, the people in front didn't seem to go, and then of course crossing the start-finish line you should just go, and the people behind were just quicker, better at doing that. So I think we ended up basically being last, but well, had fun getting back some of those positions. So all in all, pretty well. And where we are in the standings right now is probably where we were expecting to be. So all in all, pretty good, I think.
You guys are currently running in P6. You're 3 seconds behind the 27 MCM Motorsport car. I think you guys just had your little battle between the pair of yourselves. How are you guys looking in terms of strategy? Are you guys, I mean, obviously you don't have to tell us, but are you guys trying to run long and preserve the tyres, or is it more of a case of pumping out the quick lap times?
As for right now, it's more pumping out lap times, if possible staying in free air, avoiding traffic as much as possible, but with so many cars on the track and it being Suzuka, of course you can easily end up gaining or losing a lot of time if you hit the wrong people in the wrong places at the wrong time. So I think right now we're just focusing on our race, seeing how things develop. Taking it slowly, basically. Saying that while Mikkel is drifting, but
On my notes, I've got it down that you guys are a 3-man team. It's yourself, Andy, Mikkel. It's a 2-man team. I've got yourself and Mikkel Lundtoft down. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
So I do have to ask, how are you guys alternating between the two of you? Are you doing like 2-hour stints each, or are you trying to go longer in each of your stints?
Right now we're just doing 2-hour stints. I was actually supposed to drive something else as well. So the plan was for Mikkel to do 3 stints, but we are generally more comfortable in just doing 2 stints at a time. Then we are more fresh and getting something to eat, getting something to drink. But if for some reason it's needed that one of us wants a break or everything feels nice in the car, then we just take a 3rd stint. That's not something we have planned down to the smallest details. We will look into it later in the race when we get closer to the finish, seeing where we are, where everyone else are, and see if we need to change something or if we just keep running our race.
Okay, so you brought up something, and I want to bring this up as the final question.
Yep.
Eating food during a race. Now, I once had an endurance race, and my mum made me a box of noodles, and it felt really good to sit in my sim rig, legs crossed on the sim rig, lying back as my teammate, who was a lot faster than me, did his laps while I ate noodles. So what is your food of choice during a sim race?
Basically anything we can get our hands on. No, we actually, since we only have 1 car in the championship this year, we have a bit more resources regarding food. So tonight it's on risotto. One of our team members is making. Also, we need something that is kind of easy. That's smash out. Something that's kind of easy to make, something that we can warm again and again, because we're not all going to be able to eat at the same time. Nothing fancy, but more than good enough.
I'd say a risotto sounds very fancy, but Andy, thank you again very much, and best of luck in the race, and enjoy your risotto tonight.
Thank you very much.
And Yusuf, there you can see the DIS Sim Racing Lab machine has had a moment and a half and that's coming out of 130R.
It's
And
probably a
matches-
good thing we left Andy Cutson at that moment, because we might have started hearing swearing otherwise.
It may be, but we could have put it down to Yusuf's curse of the commentator. Talking about food led to that incident, Yusuf.
It made
That's
the
on
driver
your
hungry. He started hearing risotto. Where's the risotto?
hands. Suddenly heard risotto and thought, oh yeah, that's 9 hours away. Yeah, it's always a tough one to take, but it looks like they got away with that one relatively scot-free. I mean, losing the back end through 130R, never fun, I would say. It's never going to be fun doing that, but seems like they've got away with it.
So my question now is, and this goes for everyone in the YouTube chat, don't forget you can get involved using the hashtag EEWC, or if you want, hashtag GTR248 as well. Sim racing food of choice. You're in an endurance race, Kieran. What's your food to keep you company?
Interesting, really. If you can even hear me. I don't do endurance racing very often, so I don't think I'm the best person to ask.
Okay,
but I would say
sprint F1 race between qualifying and the race.
probably carbs. Anything carbs, so
Carbs.
anything pasta.
Ooh,
I would
pasta.
probably say is a good one. You want the energy release over a long time, so maybe a bit of pasta and a banana afterwards, and you get
See,
that,
this
get
is
that
being
energy.
this is being too scientific. You're going into what helps you. I'm talking what makes you happy.
Okay, a pasta pot
Okay,
from the supermarket. There you go.
Pasta
All right,
pot.
the truth is out there.
Supermarket. Yeah, you had to ruin it. You could have just ended at pasta pot.
Look,
But
you wanted details, you got
I
them.
did. That's my own fault. I kind of asked for it.
You asked for as detailed as
ooh.
possible.
Do you want some more details?
Yes.
So we've got ID Sim Sport and Satellite Racing on your screens, but we've also got Gergo Battle closing in onto Tony Jensen. This is the battle for the GTE lead between Mugen and Deuces. And don't forget, Mugen fell back and they're now closing in once again.
They are indeed, and just riding on board the shoulder there and seeing what happens coming down in towards the hairpin, or so I should say going up in towards the hairpin, running aboard with the satellite car. You can't see it, but there is a hypercar trying to get the way through. There it goes, streaming through. That's why there was a bit of an odd line being taken here and there, but again, concentration is critical when it comes to moments like that, when you're being approached by a car that is faster than your car, but you're also trying to battle the car ahead, Yusuf. You're caught in two minds, but you want to make sure that you pick the right option every time.
Two battles on your screen right now. Satellite Racing trying to find a way through on ID Sim Sport. Jan Grankvist against Marcus Steyer. Last time round, Jan Grankvist going 1.5 seconds quicker than the 166 ID Sim Sport car. Running wide through 130R. Keeps it out of the barriers though, and that is the most important thing.
Yeah, but they can't be doing that too often, because otherwise race control will be having a look at those every single time, whether it gains them an advantage going through there. So just got to be careful that they don't do that too often and see how it all pans out. But this is for, I believe, is 8th place in class, as far as I can see, between Jan Grankvist and the 166 ID Simple. It's actually for 7th place in class at the moment. So, well, we always say, Yusuf, that every battle matters, and in this case, this is no exception.
Yeah, every battle matters, and even if it's not for points, you could end up in a situation at the end of the season where you're tied on points and you're looking to essentially see who got the highest points finished as you go all the way down, and that one battle that you had that you decided to take could be the difference between you winning a championship and not winning a championship, or finishing second in the championship or finishing third. And I could go on and on, but I won't, because that would bore everyone
No, go
massively.
on. Go on.
Do you really want me to, Kieran?
No, okay, I only did it for comedic effect. Meanwhile, then the satellite racing machine maybe looking up the inside of the ID Sim Sport machine, and the ID Sim Sport machine saw that coming and closed the door going in towards the hairpin. Had to make the satellite racing driver of Jan Grankvist think twice there, but heading through 200R, Yusuf. There might be another chance here.
Towards Spoon Corner we go. Satellite Racing trying to nose their way up the inside, and they create the space. Contact between the two of them, and the Satellite Racing car into the wall. I think that was ID Sim Sport turning into the rear end of Satellite. I don't think that 264 car did anything wrong.
Well, we just got that onboard shot then, and that's when the rear right quarter panel of the Satellite Racing car got caught I will try and find a replay of that one because hopefully I had the view of the track side. But in any case, that is definitely going to be one for the stewards. They will be having a look at that one, Yusuf.
And Mugen, they put a wheel onto the grass on the braking zone into the Casio triangle. They didn't end up spinning, but it meant that they had to run wide. And as they tried to rejoin the track, they thought that they could drive through, one of those polystyrene boards that shows they tried to go over that and it launched their car into the air and back down. So hopefully for Mugen, there is no damage on their BMW, because otherwise that could be costing them massively. Gergo Baloch now 6 seconds behind Tony Jansen. All of that hard work that the driver had put in down the gutter.
Yeah, it is, but it's a long, long way to go. Just because the hard work you've put in so far has been slightly thrown away. There's still 9 hours of this race to make it up. It's not an ideal scenario, but it's not the end of the world. Just keep your head down, keep your focus, regain that composure, let the team sort out those little bits of paperwork with race control. Focus on you.
Now, I've got questions for you, Kieran.
I might have answers for you.
I've got 2. And let's hear what your answers. So, Christopher Kianik for Mugen Sim Racing in the GT3 class, they had that issue. They had to rejoin the server, 3-lap penalty. They're last. They are trying to close in. Where do you think they finished this race?
It's 9 hours. I think they could be pushing for the likes of 5th place, the likes of trying to challenge Telefoningen and CKR for position. I think top 4, they might be just too far away. There's plenty of teams there that are just slightly quicker, and if you're slightly quicker when you've had all of those issues, there's just no way you can really catch them. But there is a chance here that they can grab that 5th place. And then again, it is Mugen Sim Racing. Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, they're proving qualifying that they are on pole
Very
position
fast.
by 0.7 of a second. That's the average time as well. It's whether they can keep that composure, 0.7 per lap. And we've done so far in this race, especially with GT3s, just trying to see how many laps. 78 laps has the 585 Volante racing machine done. So if we say that's going to be about 80 laps per 3 hours, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tight.
Well, so you're saying 5th. I think that they could get a 3rd. So
I think they could break into podium.
I think they can break into a podium.
Because I think one of the things is that if you do have a tough race and you're quick, you're going to go for moves. There's going to be a sense of desperation coming in there. I do wonder if Mugen can really, sort of hold themselves back in scenarios they know.
Rein it in.
Exactly that. To rein it in and make sure that if they do make a move, they know under any other circumstance it is going to work, rather than making a lunge out of desperation.
I think also because there is a while yet, and I think a lot of the teams have their mandatory how do you phrase it? Their mandatory
issues, yes.
Yeah, so there's still a lot of mandatory issues to come through. My second question was Nikib Aslan in the number 11 SEM9 Axel car has rejoined. He's currently 1 lap behind Arturas Mazaitis. Where do you think the number 11 car will finish? I reckon it's a 3rd place finish for them.
I was thinking the same. I think they're, a lap down after 9 hours, after 3 hours, with 9 hours on the clock.
There's a lap down on Arturus. They're like 4 laps down on Artem Shaleyev.
Okay, so that makes it 5 laps. Okay, bit of a taller order then that I made it out to be. But yeah, I think, will they make it into the podium places? Oh, we got the DIS Sim Racing Lab off the track. And trying to figure out where that part is, where they are on circuit. I think that's entrance of Spoon Curve. So they have got that wrong big time going through there. Here's us waffling on about the number 11 car, about where it could be. But the DIS Sim Racing Lab car is, over the last 4 laps, ever since you talked to Andy Kirsten, there's been nothing but problems for the Sim Racing Lab team.
Well, I'm going to get a replay of that incident. Because, as you mentioned, I talked to Andy Kirsten. As I left, they had the issue. So it's actually me leaving has caused the issue.
No,
I think Andy Kirsten needs to get back in for an interview. Okay, yeah, maybe not.
I think you're clutching at proverbial straws here, Yusuf. I have to be honest with you. I think that is the curse.
I think the DIS car was trying to clutch at straws in the gravel trap.
Don't change the subject here. Don't change.
I've got a replay if production is ready. So here we go. Heading into Spoon Corner. What goes wrong for them?
Oh, that's a
What?
snap.
That looked like the rear end just locked up under braking.
Yeah, kissed the wall as well.
I don't think they touched the grass under braking.
I didn't think they did. It's definitely.
Oh, that steering's gone.
Well, we'll have to wait and see how it goes through the next couple of corners. But look, well, everything seems okay.
Apart from that steering wheel, which is now desynced with the cars. So, oh no.
There we go. It's back now.
Okay, it
Let's
is
see,
broken
coming
though.
down the straight.
Let's see if they came into the pits at the end of the lap.
Yeah.
Okay. Quite a few things out of sync for DIS, so maybe they've got. I don't think they've got an internet issue.
At this moment, do they come into the pits to see what they can repair? No, they stayed out. So clearly they're thinking everything's okay with the car, at least
Okay,
for
it looks
now.
okay now.
Yeah, but a bit of a weird one. Whether they just locked the rear brakes and it just caused that spin. Here they come again. This is live with them now. So they make their way through. Yeah, a lot better that time around. Maybe one of those free lockups that you can get if you're just slightly too aggressive with the brakes. You do it time and time again, constantly. Sometimes you're going to have scenarios where you just brake millimetrically too late. And that makes all the difference with these fine margins. With these drivers, they've been practicing these fine margins for so long that all it takes is just that little bit later, just a metre or two later, and it could cause the brakes to lock up entirely.
Yeah, you're always searching for perfection, and if it goes a little bit wrong, then, well, things can look pretty bad. I'm just keeping an eye on Nikolai Bezrikov right now in the 717. He's actually 3 seconds behind Michael Francesconi in the 53 Musto Pescara car. He's falling back. I think Francesconi has just recently made his pit stop. Also, your top three in the GTE class are currently separated by 10 seconds. Well, 11 seconds, but same thing at this point. And Deegan Fairclough in the 54 Musto car is putting in some pretty good laps. All of the top three doing 59.8s or 59.7s.
Yeah, Matsusaka here. You can see one of the features that makes it a standout. It's a figure of 8 circuit. You go underneath the bridge and then go on top of it as you head towards 130R. And you know, first built in 1962, this track in Japan, originally as a test track for Honda themselves, before they decided actually we could just go racing here.
I mean,
was a
to
much
be honest, you
better
can
idea.
go racing everywhere. Honestly, I just find any piece of tarmac, and you racers. That's Team Iris right on the back of the 241. Okay, not right on the back, the 241 car, a little bit further up the road. So that's Cyberlinks racing against, against Team Iris.
Absolutely, but yeah, keeping your head in the traffic as well is another thing you have to keep your eye on, both as you're trying to negotiate through the traffic and as you're trying to let that traffic through. It'll always make it look easier than it actually is, and there are a few hair-raising moments. We've seen, you know, a little bit of contact incident as well coming through, so we'll have to wait and see how it all pans out as that's
He's actually sent it into Spoon.
He has. So the Iris machine has now got ahead and making their way through Spoon Curve. Back down the hill they go. I do wonder here if the Cyberlink Racing team might have some sort of issue here, because they gave up in that position way too easily, and then they started to fall even further back.
Well, the first sector was 6/10 slower than Bensworth. The middle sector, nearly 2 seconds slower. Let's see what the final sector is and whether that Cyberlinks car comes into the pit. It looks to be really struggling in the background. No, they're staying out. So maybe they just wanted to let everyone through and then get back with their race. Maybe they think, okay, we don't really care if Iris overtake us. We know they're quicker, or fresher tyres or something like that.
Absolutely, as the drivers now make their way onto the start-finish straight, riding on board one of the SCM9 racing machines as they power their way through in towards the first corner, and it's Inigo Anton then in the SCM9 Axle machine, third place in class at the moment. And having a look at the last lap times then, you know, at this stage within sort of 6/10 of the team's best at the moment, and in terms of endurance racing, that's not bad going.
Yeah, some pretty good lap times that are coming through for Inigo Anton. And, well, Let's see if he can close in. Who is ahead of him right now, ahead of Inigo Anton? He's 5 seconds behind Rasmus Andreasen, who's currently running second, actually, for Burst, although Rasmus has just recently pitted. We've also got a bit of a battle starting to form in the GT3 class with Michael Ciccolini in the 777 DSR car, currently just 0.2 of a second ahead of João Gabriel in the number 13 CKR car.
And there they go then in towards the hairpin, back onto the power they will go then. So Ciccolini here having to look at his rear view mirrors because João Gabriel is right behind him in that. Could you tell that the CKR team, the number 13 machine, is from Brazil? I don't know what gave that away, Yusuf, but it's they don't make it easy to guess. Must be the name, yeah. I put it down for the name as well. But they don't make it easy to tell you where that team is from. But where they're trying to get to is the 777 DSR Gadget Husit's 4th place. And Ciccolini here just got to keep his wits about him as they head towards 130R.
Right now, there's a bit of a gap between the pair of them. Last time round, Gabriel going nearly 2 seconds quicker than Ciccolini, so trying to bide his time. Ooh! That was a rear end stepping out. He's going to cut through the Casio triangle, rejoin the track. He'll lose a bit of time, but not too much.
That all started from him running wide on the exit of 130R, coming back onto the track, and possibly some rubbish on his tyres as well, and that just unsettled the car. Didn't have the same grip as he applied the anchors, and you could see there he instantly knew that he was in trouble because you saw the wiggle into the braking zone down in towards the Casio triangle. But yeah, managed to get away with it. But runs wide on the exit of turn 2 as well. Really struggling is João Barbosa now.
Someone else who's struggling, Tony Jansen, because he's lost a whole heap of time to Gergo Baloch. There's less than a second between them, so Tony Jansen's dropped about 5 seconds in the middle sector of this lap, and now there's 0.3 between the pair of them. In fact, it was 6.5 seconds, so Tony Jansen's made a big mistake. My money is he dropped it in Degner too.
Well, we'll have to wait and see how it all unfolds then as we head our way through, and we might be able to see this GTE battle then. So this is riding on board the Mugen sim racing machine as they make their way onto the start-finish straight. And yes, of course, that 74 car of the Juices Motorsport Club car definitely has made an error somewhere, because this right here is your battle for the lead of GTE.
Or rear end stepping out on Gergo Baloch as Mugen tried desperately to close in onto Juices. They've been here once before, but then they made a bit of a mistake. They got caught up behind traffic. There have been other mistakes, but that Juices Academy car really seems to be struggling right now. This is your battle for the lead in the GTE field as we make our way through the S's and towards the Dunlop curve. The first big overtaking opportunity for Gergo is going to be up in towards the hairpin, as that is the Viaducton DPI car trying to find a way through on the Deuces car. Not going to look for anything into the first Degner, nor into the second.
Not just yet. Yeah, the Viaducton car is trying to make its way through as well, so kind of breaks up the battle for now. But I'll tell you something though, the Mugen sim racing machine is not going to take that line down. They'll try and close in once again on the Juices Motorsports Club car. Tony Jansen making an error there earlier on in the lap, and just having a look at it, somewhere out in Sector 2, he lost 7.7 seconds in Sector 2 alone on the last lap, so a definite error.
I'll tell you something else. Right now, Deegan Fairclough is closing in on the pair of them. Deegan Fairclough last time round, a 59.9. Gergo, a 2-minute 0.1. He's only 3 seconds behind these two. Give it one more lap, and we are going to have a three-way battle for our GTE lead, just like we had at the start of this race. Tony Jansen, now that he's recovered from whatever mistake he made on the previous lap, has started to stretch out the gap to Gergo once again.
He has indeed, and just seeing how it all, how that really goes about the action, and plenty to look at going through the order, especially because number 166, the ID SimSport machine, is now going to get a stop-go 30-second penalty for not respecting number 264, Jan Grankvist, in the Satellite Racing machine. So that is going to have to be served by Marcus Starr within the next 2-3 laps.
Yeah, that is not good news. We've also got battles occurring in LMP2, so if we could actually get a side-by-side picture-in-picture, that would be fantastic, because Liam Rons is only 1.5 seconds clear of Rasmus Andreasen, who is a further 2.5 seconds clear of Inigo Anton. This is the battle for our LMP2 class lead as well.
It is indeed, and we're still running aboard this GTE battle because we've got that 67 Mugen sim racing machine of George Balleau trying to find and manufacture that way through past Tony Jansen in the Juices car. Through Tegna 2 they go underneath the bridge and onwards and upwards they go towards the hairpin with a couple of cars as well as traffic behind. There you can see one of them trying to go straight up the inside of the hairpin, and again that sort of breaks up that battle again, and that's a frustrating thing when you're in the shoes of Gogo Balleau here, is that you never quite get into the rhythm of trying to find that overtake. You've always got to be looking in that rear view mirror, and just when you get close enough to try the move, you've then got to give way to a faster car. It is a hugely frustrating experience.
Incredibly frustrating, and Gogo has already experienced that a couple of times, as we are seeing the face of Rasmus Andreasen trying to close in onto Liam Rentz. That is on the middle of the three screens, effectively. The Burst Esport Goodar Sunglasses car, as they are looking to retake the lead in the prototype class, or the LMP2 class. PPIs are prototypes as well. Gogo Balleau still within 1 second. Deegan Fairclough not having the best of laps, but still gaining a fair bit of time onto Gogo. Maybe we'll have that three-way battle shortly in the LMP2 class. Liam Rantz last time round doing a 54.0. Rasmus Andreasen a 48.6. Inigo Anton doing a 47.8. So closing in, and well, they're going to be a nip and tuck in a couple of laps.
They are indeed, and whilst we leave you to these pictures, we'll go for a quick commercial break. When we come back, 9 hours to go. Don't go anywhere.
The 2022 Endurance E-Racing World Championship brought to you in partnership with Viper Gaming by Patriots, Aztec Sim Sports, Global Flix, Motorvision.tv, Sten Goldman, ESTV, and Film Vault Limited.
A 1v2 for the tournament. Pressure is on.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.